Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Property Management 101, and for today's video, we're going to be discussing 4 expert tips for regional managers. Whether you're a seasoned regional manager or you're new to the role, these 4 things we're going to be discussing today, you want to keep in mind every single day you're working as a regional manager. The first best practice that you want to consider as a regional manager is you want to make sure you have a balanced amount of visits to your properties. You don't want to have a situation where you're visiting too often or not enough. I have seen this as a common mistake from regional managers. If you visit the team too often, they can start to feel that you don't trust them for the roles that you hired them to do, or they may feel that you're always looking over their shoulder. Another thing to keep in mind is if you're visiting too much, vendors, employees, and even residents may start coming to you rather than going to that particular site team. And that is something you want to avoid. You want to make sure your team is building that relationship and rapport with vendors, residents, and each other. Oftentimes when you're at a property too much, the team can feel micromanaged, and they can also feel that you're kind of preventing them from doing their job. And it's one of those dynamics that if you visit there less often, sometimes it's actually a good thing for that property and that team's performance. Also, on the other end of the spectrum, if you're visiting too little, that team may not feel valued and may not have the opportunities to show you the job they're doing. I have seen and worked with teams where they are excited for that regional manager to come visit. They have questions they want to go over with them. They have things that they want to show them. They have a lot of pride in what they do, and they want to make sure that their supervisor is aware of the job that they're doing. One personal experience that I can share with you of a situation like this that came up. I had a regional manager that was coming to town, and me and the rest of the team were very excited for their visit. We just changed ownership and management companies, so we had a lot of questions about new processes that were put into place, software, and we also want to show that regional manager the job that we were doing with all that was going on. Also, we had future renovations coming up in the near future that we had a lot of questions about of what's going on when we're transitioning out of the clubhouse and back into the clubhouse. So there was just a lot going on at this particular property at this particular time. So when the regional manager came, we were very excited to talk to them and show them around and kind of show them some of the things we were working on and the progress. But unfortunately, that regional manager was spending a lot of time on their cell phone as well as their computer dealing with things at other sites. This allowed myself and the rest of the team to kind of feel discouraged and undervalued because we weren't necessarily getting the full attention of that regional manager, even though they came to our property to visit and spend time with us. This was one of those experiences that really stuck with me, and when I became a regional manager 6 years later, I really tried to make sure when I went to visit a property, I really focused my time and attention at that particular property. There will always be things that come up while you're at a particular property visiting that you have to attend to, whether it be a phone call or an emergency at another property or maybe a meeting. But when you have situations like that, try to keep them at a minimum or do those before you get to that property or after you get to that property. You want to make sure that your time and attention is spent at that property and why you're going in the first place. If it's a situation where you feel that you cannot cancel or reschedule too many of those meetings or times during your visit, I would recommend just canceling the visit and rescheduling, because this is going to be really important of that perception to that team that you're showing them while you're there, your focus is with them and the property's success. Of the 2 situations, I've seen regional managers tend to actually visit properties too often, not enough, but each asset will have a different number of visits that are probably going to be needed depending on what's going on. As the regional manager, you want to really determine how many visits are really needed at that particular property. And here's a list of things to consider as far as how often you should be visiting that particular property. As far as the staff of the property, how new is the staff? If many of the staff members are very new to that company or their positions, maybe you need to go more often than other assets. Maybe the site is performing very well, or maybe there's some metrics they need to focus on improving. Maybe it's on the maintenance side. Maybe when you go to that asset, maybe most of your time should be dedicated to the maintenance side, for example. How is the team culture? Do you have a particular owner visit or bank visit coming up in the near future? Is there a program or event happening at the property in the near future or in the area? And is there a new staff member starting? That's a great time to visit the property, spend some time with a new staff member, help train them and onboard them, but it also gives you the opportunity to visit the property and the rest of the staff as well. And these are just a few things to consider as far as determining how often you should visit your particular properties. Welcome back to Property Management 101. For those of you that are new here, please allow me to introduce you to our community. This channel is dedicated to discussing best practices, offering valuable tips, and sharing tricks that are tailored specifically to the property management industry. You may have noticed there is an abundance of podcasts, channels, and websites out there providing information that's related to the property management industry. However, much of this content is focused on catering to investors and to property owners really maximizing their investments. Here's where we stand out. Our channel is created with you, the individuals in the trenches, in mind. We are here to support those that are actively involved in managing properties, ensuring that not only your efforts are worthwhile, but also highly effective. So whether you're a seasoned professional or you're new to the property management industry, you've come to the right place. Join us as we dive into proven practices for the property management industry, and we'll be discussing many different types of demographic and asset types in the property management industry. Thank you for being a part of our community, and we look forward to engaging with you on this exciting journey in the property management space. The second tip you have to keep in mind as a regional manager every single day is you always want to make sure you're setting clear expectations with your entire staff. The entire team should be very aware of your standards, the asset strategy, and what is needed from a goal perspective at that particular property. When you're visiting the property and dealing with your employees face to face, this is something I would highly recommend always reiterating with them. By reiterating this when you see them and when you interact with them, it's going to be really important for them so they have a clear understanding both for your long-term and short-term goals of the property and nothing's lost in translation. I would always recommend making sure that this message is clearly communicated to the entire team, everyone from the property manager all the way to the porter. This is going to be something that's really important to make sure everyone is on the same page of. I do believe that most communication as a regional manager should be with the property manager, and that property manager should then trickle down any messages that are needed for any particular employees at that particular property. But when it comes to big picture items, macro items, I'd highly recommend making sure that everyone is on the same page and you're communicating that one consistent message to the entire team. If you're enjoying this video and you're learning something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. The third expert tip that I would highly recommend for all regional managers is you want to make sure you are very supportive with your entire team. Your big picture goal for you as a regional manager is you want to make your site teams look like rock stars. Anything you can constantly provide your teams as support will be very important so they're always in positions to perform to what that asset needs. This may include outlining goals, providing training when it's needed, filling in when it's needed, holding that property manager accountable, being that positive voice when it's needed, addressing any questions or issue that site team has needed, and visiting the site as needed. As the regional manager of the property, you're likely to have a lot more involvement when it comes to any interaction with that ownership group or in that investment group of that particular property. Because of this, you really want to make sure that you're positioning your team to succeed, because oftentimes when you're having interaction with them, one of the questions will come up will be, what have you done to make sure that we're positioning and aligning the property with what that ideal strategy is needed there? Oftentimes when you're dealing with owners, you may get a question that really the question they're asking is, are you positioning these employees to succeed? And the fourth expert tip that you want to keep in mind as a regional manager every single day as part of your job is you want to keep investors always in mind. As you work your way up the property management industry, one of the things that you probably have noticed is when you're at that site and you're a site employee, whether you're a leasing manager, whether you're a maintenance technician, whether you're a property manager, one of your big things of a focus is always ensuring resident satisfaction. As you get up to the regional level position and above, one of the big shifts of that position is you tend to go from that focus of resident satisfaction to investor satisfaction. Most likely as a regional manager, you're going to be involved in some sort of report and or meeting on a regular basis that's required your involvement in when it comes to that investment group. One mistake I've seen regional managers make is they often put residents' preferences before the owner's preferences. And this is a common mistake for newer regional managers, but it's one that I often see still with seasoned regional managers as well. Ensuring you're collecting what is needed needed from that investment group. When you collect the information from that investment group of what the ideal strategy and performance looks like at that particular property you're managing, that is really important that you first communicate that to your teams, you ensure that they understand the why behind it, and then you're constantly checking up on it, making sure that strategy and that ideal goal is being met with everyday practices that they're doing every single day they perform their duties. And for a video recap today, as a regional manager, keep in mind these 4 things as you're performing your job every single day. Number 1, you want to make sure you have a balanced amount of visits to your particular assets. Number 2, you want to have clear expectations with your teams. They should know your standards, your strategies, and the goals of the asset. Number 3, you want to make sure you're providing your teams a lot of support. This could be training, filling in, holding them accountable, etc. And number 4, you want to make sure you always have your investors in mind. It is their asset, they're the ones putting up the money and trusting you to perform that asset to what it ideally needs. So it's really important you keep your assets investors in mind more than the assets residents in mind. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. Before putting any of these practices into place, please watch our updated disclosure video as well as our updated why we do this video, which is the channel's why. And I'll be providing a link to both of those in the video description. And to stay on top of industry news, polls, and video releases, please feel free to connect with our LinkedIn and our Instagram page. If you have any questions about this video or any of our videos, feel free to leave a comment. I'll be happy to address it for you. Happy leasing!